our plan, and in fact the regime that's in place in Canada, is to have a form of price for the largest on carbon, for the largest emitters, said differently, the largest polluters. Now, what we are doing is changing that system or improving that system so that the price that's paid can be reduced by so-called carbon credits that are allocated. We're adding additional ones. We will be adding additional ones that ensure that the polluters are paying so that Canadians can receive support to reduce their own emissions. So it's a more efficient system. It works better for the large polluters. It works better for Canadians.
Now, I promise you, I understand economics, and I listened to what he just had to say, and I thought most people are going to be asking themselves, what did he just say? And you would be right to do so, because he didn't say anything beyond that. Yes, this was just an elaborate, yes, I'm keeping the carbon tax on people, for all of that, air that he spewed out into the world. He said some pretty important things, though, three specific things that I wanted to discuss. First, he said, no, it's part of the regime in Canada. Like it's cultural, like hockey or something, right? No. You are the regime that put it in Canada. And if you're not going to be the one to take it off of Canadians, then somebody has to. And the Canadians don't like it, or you wouldn't have gone through that theater on the day that you were inaugurated, the day that you were handpicked by the liberal insiders. American businessman Mark Carney went ahead and tried to pretend to everybody that he was somehow taking the carbon tax off at the pump. But really, it had to be done through an order in council, and they didn't take it off at all. They only rolled it back to zero. So they could easily roll it back up to the 21% that they wanted to be at. Just the second is they get their vote from you. Now, the regime is the Liberal Party. They're the ones that are putting that into it. They're the ones that are reaching into our lives and making everything cost more, make everything less. The scarcity in Canada is getting pretty severe, pretty serious. But we'll cover that. Now, right now, I just want to talk about the couple of things that he said. And he went on to tell you all about the carbon credits, which I know many of you are just so much wanting to hear what the guy is saying about carbon credits, which I'm going to tell you right now is not anything that he's trying to convince you it is. It's just another way for them to add money to your life. Google's AI breaks it down as this: a carbon credit represents a reduction or removal of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, allowing companies or individuals to offset their emissions by funding projects that reduce or remove greenhouse gases. Carbon credits are tradable certificates or permits that represent the avoidance of removal of 1 ton of CO2 emissions from the atmosphere. Now, what can they do? They can trade them, they can offset them, or they can invest in projects. So Mark Carney's telling you that he's about to expand this concept. He's about to expand the carbon credit for all of these companies that he's hoping will come to him and say, you know what, we're going to buy a bunch of carbon credits, and he's going to direct them to Bloomfield. Right? They're going to do projects. They already got a whole bunch of green projects on the go. And these companies are now going to backdoor paying Mark Carney. They're going to be basically bribing him, basically paying him off. And this is why, of course, Mark Carney doesn't want anybody to know about his conflicts. This is why everybody is asking him, what about your conflicts of interest? Because everybody knows that Bloomfield is heavily invested in green jobs. This is what Mark Carney's been working on with Bloomfield for years now. And now he's going to tell you that he's going to allow them to buy credits, which is just, here's a bunch of money and look the other way while we put carbon up into the air. So if you're so obsessed with carbon, how can money solve that problem? I don't understand why taking money out of the company's coffers, money that will have to be taken back from the Canadian population, is going to improve their standard and going to allow them to have the money to invest in technology, which will ultimately stop the emissions. How can we ask them to stop the emissions by doing the same thing if we're taking all of their extra money? But Mark Carney seems to be just trying to angle to have people invest in Brookfield and in projects that his company is working on so that Mark Carney can ultimately get a kick at the end of the year. When the bonuses are handed out, they'll just write a big fat check to Mark Carney. So basically Mark Carney is doing, he's basically living off the hardships of Canadians, because by imposing the carbon tax, by keeping the carbon tax, he's going to raise the cost of living for all of us. He's telling you he's removing the 21% off of you at the pump with this fake signature. But that 21% bare minimum is being added to every company in Canada. Steel, aluminum, gold, diamonds, Doesn't matter what it is. Cars, doesn't matter. If they produce anything that puts emissions into the air, they have to pay by the metric ton to the Liberal government, who will then offer them one of these three choices. They can trade, they can offset, or they can invest in projects. And of course, they're going to be encouraged to invest in projects because many of those projects are going to be going to the third part of what Mark Carney said, how it's going to help Canadians make their lives less expensive or reduce their carbon footprint. And what does he mean by that? You might think to yourself, well, what he wants to do is he's going to take this money from the companies and he's going to give it to these investment firms. And then he's going to take your tax dollars and he's going to tell you that I'm taking this tax dollars and I'm giving it to these companies that are making products that I deem to be acceptable. And by me giving tax dollars to those companies, you will now save 10% at the till. So everything that you buy from these outfits, you will save 10% on. It's only 3 or 4 companies in the whole entire country because I'm a Liberal and I have to have everything monopolized. I have to have everything centralized. I can't allow for anybody to do anything on their own without my express permission. And that's what he said there. He just said that I'm going to keep the carbon tax on there and I'm going to charge companies money, or they're going to give me money so that I can tell you that if you buy these certain products, he keeps talking about home insulation, for example, if you buy these certain products, well, you're having a less of a footprint on Earth, and I'm going to give you a 10% discount because the taxes that I've collected, the debt that I'm running up for your great-great-grandchildren is going to go to these companies so that me and 12 of my best friends are all going to laugh and giggle while you suffer, while you get told that a product that you'll never need, or if you do need, you'll need to buy it one time, is somehow going to change your life. And doing so is going to improve the standard of the whole wide world, while billions of tons of CO2 are put up into the air just in the time that I'm talking to you. No different. There's nothing new. Mr. I'm an outsider. I don't see it in any way, shape, or form. He's an insider. And now he's an insider with so many conflicts of interest that we can't trust him with a penny, with a nickel, with a dollar of our tax money. Because he is absolutely angling towards improving his own ends, while you and I scrape around in the dirt for crickets.